Today we'll be working on lesson 319, and basically this is just word problems where we're going to apply the quadratic formula, use the discriminant, and try to solve using a graphing calculator basically. So we're going to start on number 4. Jim has a sheet of plywood, so let's try to graph this sheet of plywood. And it's 12 by 21. He's going to try to cut equal sized strips from each of the 4 sides and use the scraps to make a tray. And so he's going to cut equal. This doesn't look like equal, but it's going to be good enough. So basically, and use the scraps as he said, so basically what's left, so the inside. And he's going to cut equal sized strips from each side. So if he's going to get cut x from here, so we're going to say that the width of the piece that he's cutting is going to be x. So what's going to be left for the length is going to be 21 minus the 2 x's from each side. We have done something like this before, so I hope you see the similarities. And this was 12, but when you cut x on each side, now this part is going to be 12 minus these 2 parts, so 12 minus 2x. So when they ask me to write the equation, I know that the L times W is going to be equal to the area that they give me, which is 148.75. So as you can see, the new length is going to be 21 minus 2x, and the new W is going to be 12 minus 2x, which is going to be equal to the area that they gave me, which is 14, or 148.75. Now, this is going to be L times W equals to the area. But when I ask you to find the equation, I would prefer if you give it to me, or it's required for you to give it to me, in the standard form. So what you need to do is basically FOIL. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. 21 times 12, that would give you 252. Let me make this bigger so I have more room. Okay, 252. Now when you FOIL 21 times 12 and then 21 times negative 2x, that's going to give me negative 42x. And then now the negative 2x times 12 is going to give me negative 24. And then if I FOIL negative 2x times negative 2x, that's going to give me 4x squared is equal to the area that I have, which is 148.75. Now what you need to do after you FOIL is to combine like terms. I can see that the middle ones, I can combine them. So that's going to give me negative 66x. So my new equation, if I fix it, is going to be 4x squared. So let me push it to the side. So my new equation is going to be 4x squared minus 66x plus 252 equals to 148.75. But remember, the standard equation should be ax to the second plus bx plus c equals to 0. So I need to move the 148 over by subtracting it from both sides. So when I do that, my final equation is going to be 4x to the second minus 66x plus 103.25 is equal to 0. So this is the equation in standard form. And this is what I expect from you to give me when I ask for the equation. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. 4x to the second minus 66x plus 103.25 equals to 0. That's the equation to find x, which is the width of the strips that we have cut. Now in the second part of this problem, they're asking you to show them or show how you use the quadratic formula to solve the problem. It means to find x. Now to do that, you need to realize that a is going to be 4, b is going to be equal to negative 66, and c is equal to 103.25. So you need to apply the formula that we have learned, which is the quadratic formula, and plug in the values of a, b, and c. So negative b, the b is going to be negative 66 plus or minus b squared, so negative 66 to the power 2, minus 4 times A times C. A is going to be 4 and C is going to be 103 point. I try to make this bigger so I would be able to fit it. Point, how much is it? 25? Yeah. Okay, now over 2 times A, and A in this case is 4. Now, remember that this is a quadratic formula, and we are trying to find the x value, which is basically length. So we know that whenever we find length or width of wood or any measurement, it has to be a positive value. So this can never yield an imaginary number, can never yield a negative number. And if it does, you need to just accept the positive number. So what we can do is we can plug it all together on the calculator to find an answer. Usually I tell you to just find the discriminant on your own and then find the square root of the discriminant, simplify the radical, plug it back in the quadratic formula. But since here I'm asking for a decimal, and I know that this can never be an imaginary number, I can plug it all together on the calculator. So let's do that. Alpha y equals to give me a fraction, and I can plug the whole thing, if you can see it. Okay, let me make this bigger so you can see that. So negative 66. So it's the negative of the b, negative 66. Now you know that there is a plus and a minus in your equation. So first of all, you plug in the plus with the radical over 2a, and then you type in the whole equation again with the minus, okay? So let's go ahead and start doing that with the plus. So plus, and then square root of, inside the parentheses. Remember, don't forget the parentheses. Every time you plug in A, B, or C, you have to put parentheses. Minus 4a, which is 4, and then C, which is 103.25. And I want you to be sure to notice the difference between the negative and the minus. So that's a minus, that's a positive, everything else are negatives, okay? Over 2a, 2 times 4. So that's my first answer, which is 14.75. And now what I can do, instead of rewriting the whole thing, I can go over or up twice, press enter. So it's going to copy the whole equation for me. Instead of writing it, I can go back and edit whatever I need to edit. So I need to go all the way back up till here and put a minus instead of the positive, the plus. I think I pressed back too many times. So now I need to go and put a minus in here and press enter again. So it's going to give me my second value, which is 1.75. So this is what I need to do. So my two values are 1.75 and 14.75. Now, do both answers work? Now remember, one of the sides is a 21 and the other is a 12. Can you subtract 14.75 from 12? No. So then the only one that's going to work is with the 1.75. So basically for part D, when they ask you to write it as a sentence to explain, you can say Jim can cut 1.75 inches from each side to make an area of 148.75 inches. Now, inch squared, definitely. Now let's move on to number 5, and this problem is going to be about solving using the discriminant. So let's read the problem. So we have fireworks going on, and they shot a rocket using this formula. So go ahead, read the problem using this formula. But remember, every time you have a maybe fireworks, and since this is a quadratic equation, you're going to see a parabola. So they're asking that there should be certain guidelines, and the guidelines is basically 1800. So whenever you shoot the fireworks, it has to be, it must not go higher than this number. So at most, it can be 1800, which means that my equation can be lower or equal to 1800, but it cannot go higher than that. So that's going to be my inequality for part A. Now in part B, they're asking me to calculate the value of the discriminant, showing, using the discriminant, whether the fireworks meet the federal guidelines, and how do I know? So remember, if you want to find the discriminant, it means you have to have an equation in standard form. So you need to move this over to the other side by subtracting it. So remember, whenever you want the discriminant, you need to make sure that your equation is set in. Did I copy the, yeah, I did. So it's 336t, and 100 minus 1800 is going to be negative 1700, which is less than or equal to 0. So remember, when you want to find the discriminant, your equation has to be set in standard form. So your A is going to be negative 16, your B is going to be 336, and your C is going to be negative 1700. Find B squared minus 4AC. So let's go to the calculator. Okay, so now I need to find, remember, when you want B, put it in parentheses. So it's going to be 336. Now here it won't matter because the B is positive, but remember, get used to the idea of putting, whenever you plug in a number, to put it in parentheses. A is going to be negative 16. And then the C is going to be negative 1700. And if you press enter, you're going to see that the discriminant is positive, which is 4096. Now, what does it mean if the discriminant is positive? Now, from what we've been learning, every time the discriminant is positive, it means that you will have two real roots. In this case, the guidelines, let's say, are over here, 1800 feet. And if I used this guideline in my equation, as you can see, and which I did use the guideline in my equation, it means that since I'm going to have two real roots, it means my parabola is going to go above and then below, intersecting the guideline in 2 points, and that's where the two real roots came from. So as you can see, my fireworks are going higher than the guideline. So no, it did not meet the federal requirement. Now another way to do this is that you can put it in your calculator. You go to y equals, and let's put the equation that we have, the one that they gave you just to see it on the calculator, negative 16x to the second, and then plus 336x, then plus 100. You put the main equation that they gave you, and you put the 1800 in your y2. Now, as you can see, the y has to be more than 1800. So I'm going to go to my window, because if I graph it as it is, let me show you. If I graph it as it is, I'm not going to be able to see a single thing. I'm not going to be able to see it. So I need to fix my window. So my y maximum has to be higher than 1800 for me to be able to see. So I'm going to put 2000, or maybe more if you want to. So higher than 1800. And let me increase my x maximum a little bit. 10 seems to be very small, so I'm going to put 50. And I'm going to graph it. Now this is my parabola, and this is my guideline. As you can see, my parabola went above the guideline and then below, cutting the guideline in 2 points, and that's why the discriminant is positive, two real roots. So it did not pass the federal guidelines. Now what you can do is you can go to y equals for part C, and instead of the 1800, put 2500, since the new guideline is going to be 2000. And now let's see if we try to graph it, what's going to happen.